Welcome back, y'all. This is the Bluechip Breakdown, and I'm your host, Bull. It's Wednesday, so it's time for me to give you my 7 keys to victory for our Tennessee Volunteers over the Oklahoma Sooners. And if y'all missed it earlier in this week, we've already covered Oklahoma's offense versus Tennessee's defense, and then Tennessee's offense versus Oklahoma's defense. And of course, we've already put those film breakdowns out. We had the film sessions for all the members of this channel. Y'all already know how I feel, and we appreciate y'all's support so much. If you would like to be a part of those film sessions, all you have to do is click on the join button just below this video, and that's a great way to support this channel. But there are some other ways. You can donate as little as $1 by scanning the Cash App QR code wherever that is on this screen, or you could just like and subscribe to this channel. Again, we appreciate y'all so much for all of the support. All right, before I get into my 7 keys to victory for our Volunteers this weekend, I want to send a big shout out to the OU fans. Y'all have been great this weekend. I can tell that y'all understand football. Y'all love y'all Sooners, but y'all have also been very classy and respectful at the same time. I love that. You don't see that very often in the SEC, and this is y'all's first season here. I hope that y'all stay that way, but it's something about the SEC that tends to make a fan base get a little bit sour. I think it's because we have a gauntlet, and then there's some terrible fan bases like UGA. So I will be cheering for y'all unless you're playing up against our Volunteers, or unless it, for whatever reason, if y'all win, ends up helping UGA out. I won't be cheering for you in that situation. But again, man, had a whole lot of fun with y'all this week, and we hope that it does continue. Now, let's get into my 7 keys to victory, starting off with the first one. It's going to be to get to Jackson Arnold. And what I mean by this is whether we're bringing 4, whether we're bringing 6, 7, 8, 9, however many we're bringing, we've got to get to him. And not just in the passing game, but also in the running game. He is their leading rusher. I would expect nothing less in this game. Now, they might try to get the ball to some other players early on, but I think that at the end of the day, old habits die hard. I don't know if you can necessarily call it an old habit. We're only, getting into our 4th game in this season, but I am just saying that Jackson Arnold is the key to them having any sort of success, period, in this game. He's going to have to put the team on his back and have like a Heisman sort of performance for Oklahoma, I believe, to have, even a, puncher's chance to win this fight. So that is going to be key number 1. Key number 2 is going to be to execute our assignments first. And we're sticking with the defense with this one. What I'm talking about here is, also talking about Jackson Arnold. They will run some read options where he could be a running threat. Also some triple options with maybe like a jet sweep coming over. Wide receiver could be one of the options. Running back could be another option. And Jackson Arnold's legs will always be one of the options. So we have to make sure that we're playing fundamentally sound and not trying to play hero ball, because once we start to do that, then some of the other spots on those option plays can start to get open. And we just cannot afford to have big gashing plays off of options and things like that because we're not playing fundamentally sound. Key number 3 is going to be to catch the ball. And I'm still sticking with the defense with this one. I think that if we execute on the first 2 keys, then Jackson Arnold will give us some opportunities to get some interceptions. Now, I did see last weekend versus Kent State, this might have been the only time that one of our secondary pieces did not make a catch whenever the ball was thrown to him. I believe that was Andre Turntime versus Kent State. And while we're talking about Kent State, let me just say that a lot of people said, oh man, Kent State sucks, they're horrible. Yeah, like they might be ranked statistically as the worst team in all of FBS, but their schedule versus their level of talent has been just impossible for them to do anything. I will say this, versus Pitt, I think in the opening weekend, they scored 24 points versus those guys, okay? Now, Pitt did win that game 55-24, but Pitt also only beat West Virginia, I think like 34-35, something like that. So thinking about Kent State scoring 10 less points than West Virginia, versus Pitt, I think that says something about, hey, yeah, they do have a little bit of an offense, and our defense was able to stop them from scoring any points at all. And I mean, listen, we were playing walk-ons by like the 3rd quarter. So I think that does speak volumes about how good our team actually is. Either way, the whole point right here is whenever we get those opportunities versus Jackson Arnold and we force him into some of those mistakes, we've got to capitalize off of that and get the football back to our offense, or we need to try to score. For sure, I think that that's going to be one of the big tests to see how good is this defense real. We need to generate some more turnovers. Now, the 4th key is going to be for the offense, and that's to ID Oklahoma's front. They're very versatile. They can run any sort of a front that you could think of with the defense. It's not going to be that huge of a deal, but with, Norman's probably going to be rocking. We're going to have to talk, and we're going to have to make sure that we're all on the same page because they can bring pressure from a million different places. I mean, again, anything that you could think of from a defense, Oklahoma can do. So just being able to identify where the pressure is coming from, what the front look is, whether that's in the passing game or in the running game, we got to make sure that we're picking up the people that we need to pick up. And as long as we do that, we will find some success versus their defense. Key number 5 is going to be to be patient, okay? I don't know what Oklahoma's game plan is going to be necessarily. I have seen them drop eight some, which we saw a lot versus NC State. I've also seen them bring eight. So we don't know exactly what they're going to do, but we do understand that they can kind of like drop their coverages from guys up at the line of scrimmage. I've seen some of their linebackers drop to safety depth. And again, I've seen them bring pressure from everywhere. So based off of the look that they're going to give us, we may have to, take some of the underneath stuff. We may have to check from a pass to a run and just take what's there. It could also be a situation where, hey, maybe we're supposed to be throwing some underneath stuff, and maybe there's a play where someone's going to be open deep. We have to take what they give us, but we have to be patient in doing that. And Nico really can't, he can't have a ton of mistakes in this game. I think that he actually has a little bit of leeway to have a few, and we could probably still win. But if it turns into, man, Oklahoma's generating a bunch of turnovers, then this game could be a lot closer than I believe it should be heading into it. And key number 6 is just going to be to start fast. I think that if we execute on the first 5 keys, then we should be able to get off to a good start. If Tennessee gets up by 14 points in this game, especially early on, I think that the game is over with. I just don't see any realistic world where Oklahoma's offense is going to be able to score or, like match scores with Tennessee's offense by any means. I mean, their offense is not great. We'll get to that here in just a minute, but I think that they're going to struggle to put up points on offense. That kind of goes back to the turnovers. As long as we're not turning the football over early and things like that and giving Oklahoma a very short field or some scores on defense, scores on special teams, scores on trick plays, things like that, we should be able to get off to a fast start. And if we do, the game should pretty much be over with at that point. The final key is going to be to play smart, right? Like just be smart. And if we do that, and what I'm talking about here is when Jackson Arnold is running, let's not take 15 yards. If he's sliding and somebody wants to try to prove a point and hits him, let's just not do that. Just if he gets those yards and he's sliding, give up on the play, right? Like you got to get yourself into the right spots. But there's absolutely no need to hit him. We don't need personal foul penalties. We don't need false start penalties. Now, we got a veteran offensive line, so hopefully that will be minimized, but we are on the road. So how does this thing, look from those sorts of perspectives? Also, we can't have offsides penalties, face mask penalties, personal foul penalties. We can't play with too much of an edge in this game and be fighting after the whistle, stuff like that, which I don't think is going to be a problem with this team. Coach Heupel does not like his teams to fight, so I don't think that we'll see that. We got to be very careful with those sorts of things, but that is going to pretty much be it, just as far as being smart. And then, something else that I'll throw in there real quick that we did touch on just here briefly is to watch out for those trick plays, right? A couple of our other keys had kind of touched on that, just to be, assignment sound, whether that is with the read option, things like that. But that could also mean with those trick plays, Oklahoma will do some sort of trick play in this game. I can tell that they understand that they are outmatched, that they probably will struggle to put up points on offense. So expect a few trick plays, whether that's on special teams or whatever it is. You've got to play smart. You've got to be on high alert for all that type of stuff. And I think that this team will be ready to execute on all those 7 keys this weekend. All right, now it's time for my game prediction, and we're going to be starting off with Oklahoma's offense versus Tennessee's defense. Let me talk about some players that might be returning for OU's offense, starting off with Nick Anderson. He's a wide receiver, 6'4", about 220 pounds. He is a stud. I think that he runs really good routes. He's fast, he's physical, he has good hands, all that type of stuff. They could also be getting back wide receiver Andrew Anthony. He's 6'1", about 190 pounds. He's another one that he's definitely not more of that deep threat. I think he will be more of the tough catch guy. Not very fast. He's going to run good routes. He's got pretty solid hands. And up front, this will probably be the most important thing for OU. They could possibly be getting back Jake Taylor, who is an offensive tackle, listed at 6'6", 301 pounds. Yeah, he's going to be number 79 on their roster. He looks pretty solid. I think that he could play either tackle position for them. And I think that Branson Hickman will go, listed at 6'2", 291 pounds. And he is a center for them. Got to see him a little bit versus Temple. I believe he transferred in from SMU, something like that. But he's another solid player. Now, let's just say, for argument's sake, that they end up getting back all these players. And you know what? One more player that they maybe could end up getting back for this game is going to be Troy Everett. He's a guard, listed at 6'3", 310 pounds. Let's say that they get back all of these players, because I have watched all these guys go, some just to kind of get a feel for their game. I would say that, it still will be very, very difficult for Oklahoma to win this game. And the main reason I'm saying that is because everything starts up front. And if you look at Oklahoma's offensive line, again, even with these guys coming back, playing at 100%, which the chances of them playing at 100% is about zero, right? Especially all of them. And if you're talking about the offensive line, I mean, none of those guys are going to come back at 100% in this game. So just keeping in mind that Tennessee's maybe strongest position on the entire team is going to be our defensive line. It's probably the best in the entire country. We've got 14, 15 guys that are dogs that are out to prove a point. Several of those players are older guys, fourth or fifth year, some of them 6-year seniors. They played a whole lot of football. They came back for a reason, and it's to win a championship. It's also to get their draft stock up. So they're playing with a different mindset. They got that grown man strength, and they're going to stay fresh because we will rotate our front four all the time. People talk a ton about James Pierce, and rightfully so. And he has impacted games. Really, our entire front four has impacted games a lot more than what's shown up in the stat sheet up to this point. And what I mean by that is they're going to dictate what you do. Offenses have had to get the football out of their hands very quickly because they know that we can get pressure with just our front four. There's been several, penalties on the offensive line, just as a, factor or just as a result from our defensive front getting pressure on them all the time. It's hard to block those guys. We're going to run stunts. We're going to run twists. Again, we can just bring 4 and get pressure on a very consistent basis versus, I would say, an average SEC offensive line, but versus an offensive line that, in all honesty, is not going to be up to par for SEC play. I hate to say it to y'all Oklahoma fans. It's just true. I mean, it's gonna be kind of a field day, I feel like, for our defensive front versus OU's offensive line. And in all honesty, man, if I'm an Oklahoma coach, I would just rest these guys. Anyone that's kind of like on the bubble of, being able to play at full speed, I would just rest them and get them ready for the rest of this schedule. Because again, I don't think even if all these guys were playing at 100%, Oklahoma's offense still is just, it's not going to be able to, it just will not be enough for them to, really be able to, make a huge difference in this game. Either way, okay, we're talking about dictating the pace and the flow of this game. Our front four will do that. I've seen a whole lot from Oklahoma's offense with dink and dunk, just very easy catches, trying to get the ball, trying to throw it to the middle of the field on some very, very short passes, get the ball out of Jackson Arnold's hand very quickly. I mean, I don't think that they're going to be able to deviate from that as much. Some people think, well, Oklahoma has not shown as much on film because they're saving it for Tennessee. They haven't been shown as much on film because their offensive line can't block. You can only do so much if your offensive line is just really, really bad. I would say that their offensive line is probably on par with NC State, and it might be worse within their scheme because NC State's scheme is kind of built for you not to have the most overpowering offensive line. And Oklahoma is not so much. Yeah, they can do some quick stuff, but it's not as many wrinkles. It's not as much misdirection stuff as NC State's offense showed Tennessee. So I think that they're going to struggle mightily, but it's not just about our front four. Our front seven as a unit works very, very well together. I think that our linebacking core is going to be one of the best in the entire country. Just as a point of reference, our linebacker since Coach Heupel has been up on campus, maybe our best player was, maybe Aaron Beasley, right? I think that we've got 4 or 5 guys that are going to be playing on a higher level than Aaron Beasley did at his best right now with this linebacking core. So I just, where that was kind of a weak point at with this defense, it's not going to be coming up this season just because we're going to be able to play in pass coverage. We're going to be able to do a great job of getting into our run fits. The misdirection stuff hasn't been nearly as much of an issue. Those guys are big. They're fast. They're very, very athletic. Keenan Pili, 26 years old. He's played a whole bunch of football. He is very, very savvy. He understands what's coming, and he's going to keep our defense in the right place. He's going to have the right calls, and he will make plays, no doubt, whether he's rushing the quarterback, whether he's, getting into his run fits or playing in pass coverage. He's about the same size as Stutzman for Oklahoma, but I think that he is a better athlete. So just as a point of reference, again, that's what we're talking about with this team. Now, as far as our secondary goes, this is a place that I know some OU fans think that they can attack Tennessee with because there's been some talk amongst national media that that's the weakest spot on our entire team, and it probably is, but it does not mean that it's a weak spot. This team is, honestly speaking, very, very good. This is a championship caliber team, and I think that our secondary is a lot better than people understand, especially our 2 corners. I think that we've got, probably the best, or at least one of the best cornerback tandems in the SEC for sure. We actually have one cornerback, Jamal McCoy, that's rated, that is the most highly rated cornerback in the SEC by Pro Football Focus. And I do take their ratings with a grain of salt, but I think that Ricky Gibson, who's the other cornerback, is just as good as Jamal McCoy is. But it's not just about those two cornerbacks. I love our safeties. That was my biggest question mark for this team coming into this season. But I feel like, now we're rotating 3, 4 guys in, whereas before with our safeties, it was just 2 guys playing. I mean, we rarely, if we ever did rotate players in, I mean, that was in mop-up duty. They never got a chance. But now we feel a lot more comfortable with more guys back there that come downhill, that understand what they're supposed to do, that have looked great in coverage up to this point. Now, I will admit that they haven't been challenged very much, but I feel fine with them just understanding what to do. We can scheme around that if we don't feel like they can stick with guys man to man for the most part. Now, where I feel like Oklahoma could maybe find some success at versus our secondary would be with our star position. Oklahoma calls it their cheetah. It's just the nickel player. We've got a true freshman playing there, Boo Carter. He's going to be splitting time with, more of a veteran player, but he's new to that position in Christian Harrison. But I do trust those guys. They're really good athletes. They're both showing the willingness to come up, make tackles, make plays. They ain't scared of nothing, okay? They ain't going to back down from nothing. I would just expect it if OU kind of runs some trick plays and things like that. The same thing that NC State did, that's the position that they will probably try to target. And they could have some success with that, but you're not going to make a living doing that for the entire game. So, again, I think that our defense is going to be very, very dominant in this game. And OU is just going to have to continue to do what they have done, dink and donk. And they may have some success with that early on, but we will come up. Okay, we will start to stop that. And we'll probably just, or, we might be, I'm not going to say probably, but we might just be content with coming up, keeping everything in front of us, making tackles and things like that, and seeing if, we can maybe challenge Oklahoma just to have some very long sustaining drives and use their running game some to beat us in this one. I don't think that is going to be possible by any means. All right, now let's flip sides and talk about Tennessee's offense versus Oklahoma's defense. Number one, they could get a couple more players back, especially in their secondary this week. We'll see how that goes. In all honesty, pretty much the exact same thing that I said with Oklahoma's offense getting back some players. It really is not going to make nearly as much of a difference as people want to think that it will, because it all starts with the front seven. As we've touched on throughout this whole week, Oklahoma's defense will be very versatile, very multiple. They can give you a ton of different looks, but if they cannot stop our running game, then they will not stop our offense. I think that they've got a good defensive line. I think that they've got some good linebackers, but they are, maybe some of their linebackers, or, at least one of them, Stutzman, he might be an above average SEC linebacker. But outside of that, it's just what Tennessee has been used to playing in the SEC forever. Like, this is what we see every single week. It is no different. And I know the OU fans might be disappointed to hear me say that, but it's just the truth. Y'all aren't really used to having a defense, period. So whenever you have any sort of a semblance of a defense, you think that they are elite. This defense is not elite, especially not up front. Whenever teams like, Temple, Tulane, and Houston can have any sort of success rushing the football on y'all, that's how you know that the defense is not elite. You should hold those teams to under 100 yards rushing, period, point blank. And, you haven't really done that. Well, maybe you did it with, versus Temple. I don't know. But for the most part, I have seen their offensive lines be able to get some movement versus y'all's defensive line, versus your linebackers. I've seen them have success. And, you have not seen that with Tennessee versus anybody. It just has not happened this entire season, and it typically doesn't happen. That's one of Tennessee's strengths. The whole point is, we will run the football well, and we will also stop the run well. I don't think the Oklahoma is there quite yet. So I would expect that whether we get out with 1 tight end, 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, we will find a way to dictate being able to run the football on Oklahoma some way, somehow. Now, because Oklahoma is very versatile, I couldn't tell you what their game plan will be for this one. Will they bring 3 more times, or, will they drop 8 more times, or will they bring, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys? You know what I'm saying? Like, how are they going to look? Because they can be so versatile. I don't know, but Tennessee will have an answer to all of those things. So that starts with our offensive line. 4 out of the 5 starters on the offensive line are 5th or 6th year seniors. They played a ton of football. The only guy that isn't, like a real true veteran would be our left tackle, who's Lance Hurd. He transferred in from LSU. He was the number 1 rated offensive tackle in his class. He's a stud. Have no, concerns about him by any means. So our front 5, those guys are not just good at what they do, but they've seen everything. They understand different situations. They've been on the road to the most hostile environments in all of college football. That's, really not going to be an issue for them at all. But they also play with an edge. They're bullies. They want to establish dominance. They're going to push you around, or, at least they're going to try to push you around. And I don't mean to single out Oklahoma, but I mean anyone that we face up against every single week. That's their MO. Like they enjoy taking teams, players on defense to the sidelines and dropping them right there in front of their whole team. That's what they do. They've done it every single game, and I don't think that it's going to be too different in this one. Now, I do feel like Oklahoma's front will again be a little bit better than what we've seen. NC State will probably be the closest. I would give Oklahoma's front seven an edge over NC State's, but not by that much. Also, man, like if you just talk about our tight ends, we've got three guys, really four guys. You haven't seen the fourth one very much. That would be Charlie Browder, but we've got three guys that are also dogs inside of that room. They can go out for passes. They're going to make the catches. We've got two veterans out of that three. The other one is a little bit younger, all about 6'5", 250 pounds. They can do it all. They're very, very versatile, almost interchangeable. I would say that Ethan Davis would be the true, the true receiving threat. I mean, he's pretty much like a wide receiver inside of a tight end's body. He's got great speed, all that type of stuff. So, we can give you all the different looks. Again, whether it's one tight end, whether it's two, whether it's three, it just does not matter. It's going to be almost impossible just to stop this offense. Talking about the offensive line and the tight ends, then you talk about our running backs. I think that Dylan Sampson is probably top three running back in the entire country. He is explosive, does a great job of setting up his blocks. He's a dog, right? And then you could also talk about Bishop, probably going to be running back number 2 this season. Not too many people have seen Cam Seldon, who's probably going to be running back number 3 this week. He's only had 7 carries this season. He's 6'2", about 230 pounds, 4'2", 40 guy. He's another one. He's probably going to get some reps in this game. And then we've also got Peyton Lewis. He's another running back that's very close to Cam Seldon's size. He's about 6'1", 220 pounds, very close to that speed as well. So we've got a whole lot of guys. We're deep everywhere. We haven't even gotten to the wide receivers where, forget about it. Inside of that room, pretty much everyone's about 6'3" and up. We've only got maybe 3 guys total that are under 6'3". One of them is Mike Matthews, who's a true freshman. He's looked great and everything that he's done up to this point. He might get a little bit of burn in this game. We also have guys like Braylon Staley. He's about 6 feet tall, very similar to Mike Matthews, probably going to be playing more in the slot. Then, of course, Squirrel White would be our smallest wide receiver at about 5'10". But he is a dog. Like the whole team is full of dogs. They're all playmakers. Whatever sort of a style that Tennessee needs to play to beat any team, Tennessee can do it. And I'm not saying this to hype Tennessee up. I'm just telling y'all the truth. It is what it is. And I don't see Oklahoma's defense having too much success. They will maybe find some success doing maybe a few things here and there, but Tennessee will have the answer to it. Tennessee will counter, and then we're going to start to have success. Like we talked about to start the whole thing off, if you can't stop Tennessee's running game, then you're going to have a very, very long day stopping everything else that Tennessee likes to do. I think that Tennessee will run for over $150 in this game, maybe even more than that. It could be close to about 200, all depending on, again, how Oklahoma wants to play us. Now, we have not talked at all about Nico. I think that all Nico has to do in this game is just manage it, okay? Just manage this game. Don't turn the football over. And Tennessee should win, in my opinion, by 3 touchdowns. If he comes out, if he's balling, okay? If he's sharp, if he's crisp, which I would expect for him to be. He talked about loving road games. I think he's built for these types of situations, these big moments. I think that this is when he will play his best. And, like we also touched on, man, everyone on this team wants to perform well for Coach Heupel. So I feel like Oklahoma is about to get Tennessee's best offense, defense, special teams, and that also includes Nico. If he plays at his best, Tennessee could put up 50 or more points in this game, all depending on will Coach Heupel call off them dogs and kind of have some mercy on Oklahoma, which I don't think that he will have too much, right? Because there is some bad blood, and Hype is a competitor. He wants to dominate, okay? That's the identity of this team. That's the personality of this team. And I fully expect for Tennessee to do just that. Now, I'm not going to give a final score prediction, but I will say this. I would expect for Tennessee to win this game by 3 touchdowns or more. And if Tennessee doesn't, then we're not who we thought we were. And, we'll see what happens on down the line. We would have to improve a whole lot more. The only way inside of my mind that the game is closer than that is if we have a ton of turnovers. And, if maybe Oklahoma finds some success on some trick plays on special teams, things like that. I just do not see them having too much success at all from their offense. And I don't see their defense being able to absolutely, I would say even slow us down for the entire game. Tempo might be used in this one from our offense. And, with Oklahoma's defense being so complicated, it's going to be tough for them to get into the right calls and things like that. They're going to have to be basic. And whenever you get basic, like whenever we know what the defense is in for sure, I mean, we are going to pick you apart. So those are my thoughts. Please let me know yours down in the comment section. And as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.